All right, welcome back to Honest Ways Podcast. I'm Todd.
I'm Carolsue. Today we're going to be talking about women and the challenges of navigating unsafe communications. If you haven't had an opportunity to listen to the podcast from last week about male communication, we strongly encourage that you listen to them both together as they sort of layer each other.
They sort of talk to each other.
Yeah.
Ha.
I see what you did there. So let's talk just briefly about why conversations may feel unsafe. So speaking up sometimes triggers anger, dismissal, or punishment. And some of these behaviors and patterns start really early in life. And as we all know, the things we learn when we're young tend to stick with us unless we have an opportunity to learn better ways later down the road. Yeah.
And I've seen this in the workplace myself, and women get criticized for exhibiting sometimes even a better portrayal of certain behaviors, for just making a statement like, hey, did you think of this? A lot of times that can look aggressive. You know, they get false labels. It's basically identifying that somebody was intimidated by the fact that there was knowledge that they didn't have in those moments, which goes back to, like we were saying, that knowledge insecurity loop. It's people are so afraid to show where their gaps in education are, that without realizing that nobody knows everything, and that's okay. That needs to become more and more okay.
That's really the important part.
Yeah.
So women in our audience, I know, can relate to me. What you can think about how many times you've tried to plan the whole statement in your head, every possible angle that could be offensive or dismissed as emotional or reactive or whatever the label people want to give us. And so sometimes silence is seen as the least risky option. Look, I don't really need to contribute here. I'm just going to stay quiet because I don't feel like the backlash. Yeah. And you lose your voice. I mean, and the contribution that other people, anybody can give, can be mind-blowing. And it's sad that we are in a social environment right now where it's the loudest person in the room seems to prevail. And they're not always the best person to be the loudest person in the room. They're not the most educated. They're not the most competent, knowledgeable. Those emotional responses can cause a lot of silence. Because we love our disclaimers here at Honest Voice, I can say that there are certainly situations where people don't communicate effectively, where people may inappropriately use being louder or a sharper tone so that they can avoid being challenged, right? But what we're talking about here is just normal interactions that we have day to day, where some of us feel the need to filter our message through a lot of different opinions. And so sometimes we choose just to stay silent, and then we, as you said, lose our voice altogether here.
Yeah, the prep that some people have to do sometimes, specifically, and the majority toward women in my experience. Now, you can go into different social climates, it can be different. We'll talk about research when it's valid, but also we're going to talk about our own personal experiences. Because the interesting thing about this podcast, it came about because we got involved in a communication program that opened our eyes that there's so many other nuances to communication, and we have pursued education in that ever since. And we have tried to bring ourselves up to hopefully what's considered subject matter experts when it comes to communication, because we use this in the field with people that are in distress. Some of them have mental illness, and those contribute to different kind of variables of educational background, understanding, coping skills, and things like that. So we have definitely elevated our educational level about communication more so than the average individual. That's probably the best way to say it.
Very fair to say.
Yeah.
So if you've ever heard somebody say to you, you're being too sensitive, you're being too emotional, why are you making this such a big deal? In a lot of cases, that's an attempt to silence you from bringing up something that may be very true and also very uncomfortable. So we want to make sure that we are equipped with the tools to keep our voice in the conversation and set boundaries where we need to for our own safety, because unfortunately that's a factor that a lot of people, and especially a lot of women, have to consider.
Yeah, and with those responses, it's not always about your communication. It's about a dysfunctional or toxic environment.
Right.
So if you're being suppressed, and especially when you say, just let it go or don't cause a scene or something, like that's really the person that's, in some cases, might be taking your idea and saying it's their own, or putting you down because they create that idea where, like, I have a lot of energy, so I don't always sit down. And when I was in the military, a lot of times I would hear, dude, slow down or sit down, you're making the rest of us look bad. And I would just very kindly say, I'm not making you look anything. You know, it's, that's your choice to look at this situation and feel insecure about it. And that's Robot Todd. Yes. I'm actually not making you feel anything.
That's right.
So you'll get that kind of environment where your voice is suppressed. But The main thing is when it goes to intent and impact, and this is really important, I think, here, and correct me if I'm wrong, because this is the women's...
Because I'm in charge today.
Exactly. But intent and impact, if you want your voice heard, think about what the best way to get that voice in there is. So you may have to adapt, for lack of a better way. You may have to figure out, because the environment has barriers, but it's also above your rank, so to speak, or hierarchy, they have the ability to hold you back, to shut you down. Like we saw on a cop show one time, was really, really good. The more senior cop told the junior cop, it's like, we don't get involved in that because they'll take us out of this situation and we won't be able to do good where we can. So sometimes you have to, because of the environment, you have to learn creative ways to navigate it. You shouldn't have to. Like, that would be the honest voice.
Dream. Yes.
Yeah, the honest voice dream is that everybody communicates openly, honestly, and everybody respects each other no matter what they're saying. I mean, and it's doable. It really is, but we have so many negative influences around us. It's really hard to grab hold. It's like trying to grab one of those merry-go-round spinning things while it's in motion, you know? Or the weird people that jump on treadmills while it's moving.
What is this?
Yeah, we see that on YouTube.
What is this?
Why are you getting on? Yeah,
understand.
That's a really good analogy right there. It doesn't work. So you need to find a creative thing, like how to turn the speed down or off and put your feet on the sides of the treadmill before you simple things. But those are metaphors for your environment as well.
It's good. So like so many other patterns that we see in adulthood, conditioning around how you speak it starts very early. So young girls especially learn to soften the way we talk. You don't want to yell. You don't want to be too loud. We are taught, just through modeling more than anything, to accommodate other people. Make sure that it's fair, make sure that everybody has a voice, everybody has a turn, and to anticipate the reactions of the people that we're communicating with. We watch our mothers, grandmothers, aunts do this. We see our female friends do this, teachers, whoever our mentors are. We see people, and you can kind of watch the strategizing, and you see that we're very delicately trying to present ideas. So this starts at a very, very early age, and you'll hear things like, oh, don't cause a scene. Just let it go. I know that he hurt your feelings, but just let it go. Understand that people intend good when they say things like this. Just keep things calm. We don't want to stir things up. But what you're really doing is you are stifling someone's voice when they are hurting, and we don't want to do that.
Yeah, and those things go beyond just that stifle. They create a behavior. Once these limits are put in place or these influences are brought to you, it creates this behavior where you start to become that.
Yes.
And that's what changes you, not just in your work life, but also in your personal life.
Absolutely. So what we learn early on is to be cautious before we are confident. We might not even get the message that your voice matters. The first message we get is, well, think about how that's going to come across. Think about how that's going to be received before you even have permission to have a voice in the conversation at all.
Being cautious is one of the best tools you can have for communication. And that's also the flip side of why a lot of men are aggressive, because when you say, like, the interesting thing we brought up on one of our previous shows is when people say based on data or based on research, the subconscious perceives that as somebody's unsure. But really that might be the subject matter expert in their field, but that's how they talk. They're going to say, because they know, having actually pursued intelligence in a certain, or education in a certain area, that it's not the end. Like,
absolutely.
Like, we might consider ourselves subject matter experts on these communication styles. We can't just say, this is the statement you'll use when you're told to be quiet. It doesn't work all the time. It can actually make things worse depending upon context. So human behavior, communication, attitudes, perspectives, education, all those things, they all play a factor. And those were 5 out of probably 100 different variables that just go into social communication.
It's true. We can safely say that the most dangerous person in any room is the one who thinks that they know everything there is to know about a certain topic.
Yeah.
Because what that probably means is that they've learned a bunch of stuff 20 or 30 years ago. They've stopped learning. And so they're just pushing forward very old or outdated and sometimes very dangerous ideas. So keep learning. Keep learning. It's okay to say, I don't know. We can talk about that for hours if you let us, but we're going to try to stay focused. So here's where things get extra complicated for women. Being direct is something that, in general speak, is put forward as a positive thing, but we are taught that directness can be aggressive if we're not real careful with it. We're also taught that caution is labeled weak. So you can't be too direct or you'll be aggressive, and don't be too cautious because then you're weak. And don't be silent, because then you may be giving implicit consent to something you don't want to consent to. It's this web. So I don't know how else to explain it. It's a web.
It really is. And it's conditional on the circumstances.
It is.
But I also want to say that about the directness being labeled as aggressive, that can also sort of work in reverse. Like I had this friend who, she was an instructor, and I never watched her teach, and we talked for like 2 months. We were both educators, and she's very kind, very soft-spoken and all that stuff. And then we went in the classroom, and she was like, all right, everyone pay attention. And I'm sorry, were you saying something that you want to share with the class? And like, she was very assertive. And then when I asked her, I said, I noticed a massive change in your personality when you come into the classroom. And she's an African-American female, so, and prior military.
Yeah.
So she's probably been silent so many times that now her baseline is to go into a group and talk as assertive as possible to mimic that authoritative kind of mentality that men try to project. So that's something to watch also. The ultimate situation, like I've joked before, is when people make those comments. Like I had somebody one time accuse me of being aggressive, and I knew that they were just not used to me being serious. So they were trying to make me feel uncomfortable about the fact that I was just talking like this in the moment. I knew this was coming. Like I knew the person, I knew how defensive they were, so I over softened my voice. And this is educational level of de-escalating people and and monitoring my own body language, my own feelings constantly. I mean, it's something that it's abnormal, but that's what we do as professionals in this field is we have to over monitor ourselves, because I mean, honestly, it could be a human rights violation if we don't. So we work very hard to make sure that we're talking softly. So this person immediately labeled me as aggressive. And I was like, can you please identify what the aggression is right now? Am I speaking loudly? Do I sound like I'm being curt in the moment? Am I cutting you off? And they're like, well, okay, maybe you're not being aggressive right now. But and I'm like, I honestly think you're just not used to me being serious. So you're exaggerating. So see, those were all honest dialogues. And probably even a better way that I could have said that was, do you think maybe there's just a contrast between my normal jovial self and the seriousness? That would actually been even a better approach. And I'm not sure what I said in that moment. I probably didn't say it the right way. But anyways, that's just something that you can overcompensate for because of the way society is labeling you in these moments.
So all this context just to tell you that it's not an inborn skill set to know how to navigate this the right way. And when there's all these additional unspoken rules about be bold but not too bold, and make sure that you're quiet and make room for other voices, then you're just not sure where to start. So we want to just provide a little background about where that comes from and some skills so we can start to make sure that our voices are in the room.
The one thing that I think has been really problematic in society, and there are studies to support this, is that this is the age of opinions. You know, like 20 years ago, people wouldn't have had an opinion about 90% of the stuff that they now feel provoked to have an opinion about.
True. Public opinion.
Yeah, the public. Yeah,
yes,
and everybody needs to hear it.
That's
everybody
right.
needs
That's
to
right.
know it. And, you know, it's a very odd thing. So one of the things we wrote about in one of the books is like 20 years ago, there could have been a political bumper sticker on the back of a pickup truck. And somebody who completely disagreed, the opposite party and all that stuff, could have looked at it and gone, what an idiot, and then walk to their car, and that would have been the end of it. But now they vandalize the truck. They write some kind of sign on it.
Try to rip the bumper sticker off.
They're
property damage now.
So there's this like culture of almost a reduction in coping skills and a reactivity that did not exist 20 to 30 years ago. And it's very interesting to watch. It's also very sad. But the thing that we're trying to do is basically thwart that and reverse it. We're trying to get people comfortable to say the truth. I've even said to a boss before that getting angry with me about that is not going to solve the problem.
That's right.
I don't have a problem saying it, but it's something that you have to evolve to, and you have to learn that. Watch your behavior in those moments because of society, and I agree you should not have to do any of this, but make your behavior infallible. No matter what somebody tries to put, you're too intense, or you never speak up, but now you are, or why didn't you say this earlier? All these opinions that people have about the way you're approaching it. First of all, you don't owe them an answer.
Right.
You know, in a lot of cases, that's just how I handled it. I did not get elevated. I did not yell. I know for a fact my voice was calm because I made sure it was.
Right.
You know, I intentionally
anticipated this exact reaction.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So if you're in situations that you think could go out of whack, make your behavior indisputable.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't have to. I have to say that over and over again.
I get you.
But it's intent and impact. If you want your words to be heard in a narrow-minded kind of society or social situation, what's the best way to get those words in there?
Yeah, and also be prepared to accept that if you have given your best effort, or even if you've given kind of a clunky effort that was supposed to be your best effort and is not received, that's okay.
Yeah.
That's okay. So we want to talk just briefly about what happens when we do decide, you know what, it's just easier if I step back, if I don't say something. What's the cost of us being silent? Emotional exhaustion accumulates. You may not speak about a topic that you feel passionately about, but that doesn't mean you stop thinking about it. It might still be stressing you out, or you might have an unresolved issue that you need to discuss. And if you don't talk about it, it just sits in you and keeps you awake, or you fixate on it, or it distracts you from other things. Your needs go unmet. This may be a very simple thing where you're looking to change your work schedule to accommodate another obligation and you don't feel safe to bring it up. So now you're finding yourself doing double work to meet your own needs because you haven't felt safe enough to speak up about what you need. Resentment replaces connection.
Yeah.
If you feel like you can't talk about an uncomfortable topic, then somewhere in our own brains we might start to resent that fact. And why would we resent facts when we can spend time resenting our loved ones? And then it turns into a lot of unnecessary stress and disconnection.
Yeah, or resenting the person who you feel is holding you back. That's a lot of energy. There's a really good resentment metaphor or meme that's basically resenting somebody is like taking poison and then expecting them to get sick for it. So that kind of, I mean, it really is true that that's also another human construct. We've been taught to retaliate because, and it goes as early as how you were punished or how you've seen punishment is when people take it personally and say, I'm doing this for your own good, or this hurts me more than it hurts you. That's all personalization of causing pain to somebody else, either physically or mentally. So that's not helpful either.
Right.
And that goes back to what I was saying about the coping skills. Consider what will happen if you're laughed at, they make fun of you, whatever, and how you will handle it gracefully. Because it's a choice, like we've said before, it's a choice to respond the way we respond based on the belief in that moment. If we're like, well, they're being rude and they shouldn't act like that, it's like, yeah, we all know that. But how are you going to stand above that and just be like, I did my best, you know?
That's
I
right.
gave the input, it didn't help. The main thing is maintain that relationship and that basic identification of integrity, because when you do get that chance to speak your mind and it's in a safe place and it's in a place where you can't be retaliated against, you will be heard.
Yes.
But if you're a person that reacts emotionally every time people shut you down, then when it is time for you to be heard, and when you do have something that can really impact people for the better, they won't listen because they've already looked at the behavior and be like, oh, she's just yelling again.
That's right.
Yeah. I mean, this goes for men too, but
Oh, absolutely, yeah.
I'm probably talking too much right now.
You're fine. I knew you were going to say that at some point. So if you've ever found yourself saying, I'll just deal with this myself instead of talking about it, or it's just easier not to say anything, then that tells me that you've had times in your life where you have had to choose silence because it was too dangerous, unsafe, uncomfortable to speak up. And we want to try to give you some skills to use to turn that around.
Yeah, and from the bullying mentality, that's what they want.
That's so true.
They want your mindset to be, you know, I'll just deal with it myself, or it's easier to say nothing. Of course it is. They want that to feel difficult. And why is it easier not to say anything? Because you don't have to get these other people involved that are going to create problems. Because that's all they're doing is creating a problem out of nothing, where you've just tried to basically supply a little information that can actually improve things.
Yes, absolutely right. So let's talk for just a minute about emotional labor and invisible work. I think this has become a pretty common topic of conversation.
Yeah, it's all over
Invisible work.
BuzzFeed.
Yep. So things like managing moods. We may not realize this, but it's not healthy to feel obligated to manage the moods of everyone that you're in a room with. But it's a very common practice, especially for women, I think.
Yeah.
Softening conflict. Well, we don't want to upset. We don't want to disrupt. So we try to take whatever our pure message is and make it fluffier, for lack of a better phrase. Make it easier to digest before we feel safe enough to say it out loud.
Yeah, and while that's a really kind way, since we are honest voice here,
That's right.
that was one of your significant concerns at the beginning. I mean, because you do that. So,
Oh, yeah.
yeah, you are the master negotiator when it comes to calming people down in a room, but you also were suppressing a lot at the beginning of our relationship because you didn't want to upset me, or you didn't want to bring up a problem where there wasn't a problem. And you basically suffered in silence a few times on those things. And I know that for a fact. And I just appreciate you didn't kick me to the curb at that time. And you taught me better ways. I learned this. I learned this from watching you. But
if you're old enough to remember that commercial, "Hi, we are your people."
Yeah. But that's something that you can speak from thoroughly. That do try to soften things, but you don't have that issue anymore. It's all variable also.
Sure.
Like sometimes the right thing to do is to help soften conflict, but you don't let that happen at the expense of your voice being silenced.
Right.
That's the key issue.
Yeah, exactly. So protecting relationships at personal cost is another one of those unspoken things. Women are seen as the nurturers and the relationship maintenance crew. This is evolutionary. It started when people started being people. But the key phrase here is at a personal cost. And you really have to gauge that, because how healthy is your relationship if you're not in a place where you can share your concern openly?
Yeah, Honest Todd gets in trouble for that one a lot. And people will be like, what do you think I should do about this? This is happening and they keep doing this to me and they keep saying this to me. I'm like, it might be time to reevaluate your relationship. And they're like, what? It's like, oh, that's... If you've got a constant toxic flow of responses every time you do something, or you're constantly picked on for, you do something good and it's like about time, and you do something bad and you're just like, you're always doing that, there's just no end to the conflict, that's not good.
Yeah.
So it might really be time to reevaluate that relationship. And I've done that myself, especially learning this stuff. You're going to leave people behind when you start setting boundaries. People are going to be like, you're shutting me out. No, I'm just making something more healthy for myself.
Yes.
But they'll try to cross that line, and I've seen it a lot. And I have articulated, hey, I have said that I don't feel comfortable with that. I have asked you to stop doing that. You don't need to do that in order to be my friend. It's not like it's something they push on you, that they're just pushing on you to assert that I'm the best friend, so I get to.
That's right.
I can say that about you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
Special privileges. That's perfect. And I would say, no, that's a boundary. And if you can't respect that, then that's not what a friend does. And I've dismissed those relationships because they're one-sided and they're uncomfortable. And when you start realizing that you feel worse after a conversation in a relationship than you then feel better, then it's really time to evaluate that stuff.
Yeah, we talk a lot in CIT about that exact concept, because there are some kinds of personality disorders, but it's not even about the depth of a personality disorder. There are some personalities or some relationships that when the person walks away from you, you feel either drained or frustrated or sad. And if that happens over and over again with the same person, as you said, it's time to think about whether or not that relationship is still healthy and good for you.
Yeah, we're not saying give up right away. Try some tactics.
For sure.
I mean, the first tactic, the easiest one, would be like, can we together maintain a conversation and be respectful? Can we just talk respectfully without escalation, without
Passive
louder
aggression.
voices?
Yeah.
Without sarcasm, without passive aggressive. Can we just please have a conversation about this right now? When we talk about finances, talk about parenting. When we talk about, use I statements, and I statements are not like, I get really mad because you're a jerk. That's not an I statement.
What do you mean? It started with I?
Yeah. An I statement is more like, I sometimes get a little scared when we're talking because it seems like things make you angry.
Yep.
Not you get angry, but things make you angry, So try to take that ownership off of there and things that can be perceived as an attack. That's a lot of work, but ultimately it pays off. So the weird thing that we found out is like, it might be different, but once you start doing it, you realize that you should have been doing that all along, and it just becomes easier and easier because you're countering familiarity. You're not countering accuracy. You're not countering the right way.
Right.
You're countering something that actually it's been going on, but obviously it hasn't been working. So you're trying a new way, and they feel uncomfortable at first, but then you just look back and, man, we do it all the time and be like, why did we even try the other way? And like I said before in a previous show, when you egg on the conflict, when you fight, that stuff goes on for hours. But you come to a solution in like 10 or 15 minutes and then get back to what you were doing, and you can be intimate again, you can be close. It's mind-blowing. It's mind-blowing the amount of hours that people waste in a relationship with conflict.
Yes. So we want to talk just a little bit about safety, because it is a factor that a lot of folks, and unfortunately especially women, need to consider in these circles. So we want to assess safety.
Guys, pay attention.
We want to assess safety. It's just a reality right now. So we want to talk about the time, the place, and the person. So if you are trying to approach someone who in your past interactions has been loudly reactive, yelling, posturing, then I'm just going to recommend that you don't have a tough conversation with that person alone.
Yeah.
Or in a place where you can't immediately get to someone else if you need them. So,
yeah, if it's not, so non-intimate. So let's,
yeah.
So for the non-intimate sides.
Yes, exactly right. So the workplace, this comes up a lot at work. If I, as a supervisor, have to have a conversation with a subordinate who I know is very performatively reactive, is just going to be angry and have an outburst, and how could you even say that about me? All the work I do for this unit.
Yeah.
Then I'm going to make sure I have someone either close by or in the room with me, ideally, if I'm trying to address maybe a performance issue or behavior issue. So keep that in mind. We want to think about the place. We want to think about the person that we're talking to. And really, is this a conversation that can be had safely right now?
Yeah, that's true. So you want to use boundary phrases. Basically, you want to contain potentially loud conflict in one place. Say, I want to do this, but I don't want to get yelled at.
Yep.
Okay, so I want to speak respectfully, and I'm not asking you for anything more than what I'm doing. Let's just both be respectful. Those are boundaries.
Exactly.
And they're conditions, but it's also, prep is a big deal. A lot of people underestimate preparing somebody for.
Oh, it's so powerful.
Yeah, it really is. It's like, hey, I don't want to get anybody upset, so I'm going to put out this information, and I ask that you just listen to it for the words. Don't react to it. Try not to get emotional about it. Just listen to it for the words, and then let's discuss what it means afterwards. Those are boundaries, but they're also great preparatory conditions for setting up the conversation.
You don't have to have hard conversations alone, as Todd said already, and having support reduces isolation. It also increases comfort, and if you're trying to have a difficult conversation and you've set up everything to the best of your ability to be safe and be comfortable, chances are that conversation is going to go a lot more productively.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
And the main thing is, this is one thing that always bothers me, and I've seen this in bosses and I've seen it in relationships, is that if you're in a relationship where the other person doesn't like you talking to your friends about them, then that's such an interesting issue, because it's what they're saying is, I'd rather you not talk about it than me change my behavior to where it's acceptable to be talked about. So that's like sort of a reddish flag, like, because you don't know motivation. Sometimes we just have certain lifestyles that there's certain things that I don't want Carolsue talking about that might be weird. I can't think of what that is right now. And
the comments for this one are going to
be... this ought to be some good comments. But
you're getting red. I'm just going to let you
know. I'm actually turning red. I'm not even thinking of anything that I do that might be weird. But I mean, I know I'm a little weird. But the main thing is that if somebody is aggressively telling, what are you saying about me to your friends? But they never think about changing their behavior. So there isn't anything to talk about. Bosses do that too. It's like what they call gossip in the workplace, when really it's sometimes it's survival. You need to talk to your friends or your coworkers, like, am I seeing this wrong? Or is he being dismissive or constantly acting in such a way that he's taking my ideas or making mistakes, and when I try to point it out, they're saying, well, I didn't do that, and they don't accept responsibility. They're just dumping it back on you. Then that's just trying to maintain your own sanity. So if one of those things gets back to the boss and they're like, why are you telling people that I take your ideas? Because you do. You know, the bottom line. But that's the kind of person that would rather suppress the conversation rather than actually improve
address the issue.
Address the issue and improve, because especially from a leadership standpoint, that right there is activities that the leader is doing that is degrading that person's quality of life, that ultimately they will leave because of. You know, and supervisors just don't think about retention enough. But anyways, I digress.
So we've talked a lot about what you can put in place to make conversations safe for yourself and the other people that you're talking with. But there are some environments that can't be made safe, whether it's a person who just is going to be reactive, has been threatening in the past, whatever the factor is. Choosing not to engage can be protective.
Yeah.
We don't want to start with the idea that you should just stay silent, but there are some places where it's just very clear, because of another person's issues or because of a structure that you can't change, that you're not going to be able to influence the situation. It is much safer to stay silent.
Yeah, in fact, I'll bring these up because the last two are key here, but we have got 5 basic rules for communication. And before you talk, is it honest? Is it, I do this every time.
Is it kind?
Is it kind? And
necessary?
Yeah, so those are the 3 main things, but the last 2 things are, will they be receptive and will they learn anything from it? So receptive is just, can you even tell them this thing?
Right.
All right. And then will they learn anything from it? And this is a really big point in this particular conversation, because I use this a lot. And a lot of times people will say, well, you need to speak up for yourself. And I actually had a client that used to always say, if you don't stand for something, you'll fall for anything. It's like, yeah, that's contextual. But in a situation where you know that saying something is going to get you fired, or you know that saying something is going to put you in danger, like especially out in public, then that's not a time to stand up for yourself. And silence is a strategy.
That's right.
It's not fear. It's that I know if I say this to you, you are going to get mean. So my point is irrelevant. You're not teaching them anything, so we can't expect you to just change your whole style immediately.
Absolutely.
You're still going to have that, man, I wish I could have just given them a piece of my mind. But honestly, when you feel that way about a certain person, when you give them that piece of your mind, they're not going to understand it, and they're not going to learn from it anyways. So your piece is more important than trying to get that point across.
Yes. So what we want to make sure is that we're making decisions for our own silence when it makes sense and when it is the safest choice, but not because we're forced into being silent because those around us just absolutely refuse to make an environment safe enough for us to speak openly.
Yeah, and before you comment that this is the ladies' lecture and Todd's talking too much, I was a domestic violence awareness educator. So this kind of stuff is very near and dear, and I have an unrealistic big brother mentality over the way women are treated sometimes in public.
I think they can tell that you're an ally.
Okay, I'm an ally. I guess that's the best way
He's
to say
safe.
it. I'm not
He's
trying to like toot my own horn or anything like that, but I just want the people who are like, why is the man talking so much?
You're the educator. It's okay. It's all right. I give you permission to talk as much as
Thank you very
want.
much.
How about that?
I appreciate that. I feel safe in this environment.
Very good. So once we feel empowered that we can choose silence when it makes sense, when the environment is not safe for us to speak up, we still want to be able to acknowledge that with words, to say something like, this isn't safe for me to discuss right now. I've had times when decisions were made for me in my work environment, and it was very clear that my voice wasn't being considered, as evidenced by the fact that the decision was made by people who supervised me without my input. So in that place, it's not really safe for me to tell you how I feel. You weren't considering it to begin with, and I'm not sure what the repercussions would be if I were to say something that contrasts what you just told me is going to happen. So it's not safe, or it's not going to be productive for me to share how I feel right now.
Yeah, and that's from a job perspective.
Yes.
What about the environment? Like a person gets approached in the gym or something like that, you know? That's not the time to confront it.
You're exactly right.
And I have to say this over and over again. You don't owe anybody anything. I mean, you don't owe them a hello. If you've got headphones on and somebody's like, just like, and then go back to your workout. And if they bother you, go to the staff. What?
I will tell you, excuse me, I will tell you that Todd does not have pet peeves. He'll tell you himself. But he has issues that he feels very strongly about. And women being bothered in the gym, it's like, it's in your core. It's in your core.
I don't get it. And I've seen pieces of podcasts, they'll say that a woman's being rude because she dismisses an advance or moment to communicate. But I don't agree with that at all. It's like, you're there for your own workout. If you're there to socialize, then take your headphones off.
Yeah.
That's fine. But if you're there to work out, then I do not understand why anybody needs to be approached when they have headphones on. I mean, even if you're using equipment that they're waiting on, there doesn't need to be a conversation there.
Right.
You just hover out of their sight. You don't need to stand in front of them and stare at them while you're waiting. That's another factor that bothers me all the time, because that just, in my older days where those kind of things, I didn't handle them the way I handle them now, I would have been like, my 3 sets just went to 12 sets now. I'm going to occupy this machine, and I'm going to wave to you in between sets. But
for an hour.
Yeah, for an hour. But no, I mean, it wasn't that bad, but that was in my infant stages of learning communication styles. But this is another thing I'm going to say, and I should have said it. We weren't talking about this in the male communication thing because we were talking most about emotional impact. But badgering somebody does not make them give in, all right? So, guys, if you're not acknowledged in that moment, kindly walk away. Even say, hey, I'm sorry to bother you. But aggression, coercion, insults, things like that, do you really think that the woman's going to say after you insult or be aggressive that, okay, I thought about it, maybe there is a chance we could date? I mean, I never understand the mentality. You're just honestly, you're just showing a certain level of immaturity, and it's on display. And these are honest. I'm not trying to be insulting in any
No,
capacity.
right. I mean, this is from our point of view of these are things that we think most men have not been taught. If you are a man, chances are you probably don't know exactly how much time women have to spend in keeping ourselves safe.
Yeah.
Right? So if...
Look it up. I mean, really,
it's
Google.
true.
What do women do to keep themselves safe on a daily basis? It's mind-blowing.
It is. It's so much. So if you've made an offer and a woman has said no, a woman who you're going to be able to have a healthy relationship with is giving a healthy boundary. Lots of people play a lot of fun games, and he should chase me and he should have to work for this. I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about adult women.
Yeah.
And if the answer is no, thank you, and you continue to pursue, that's a threat.
Yeah.
I know that sounds like harsh language, but the bottom line is I've set a boundary, and before I even know your name, you're already crossing it. That's not a good start. So respect the first no, and as you said, sorry for bothering you, or thanks for letting me know, and just move on.
Yeah. I mean, and think about it. If you're trying to cross a boundary, that's already, you're starting off from a bad place. And if you're trying to say that, come on, I'm a good guy. If you're a good guy, you wouldn't have to say that. We're writing a dating book so you want to date again, giving these kind of tips and things that we're hopefully be releasing. It may have been released by now because these are delayed a little bit. But one of the things that I wanted to say was, I think women should always say no. And my wife was like, well, that's sort of harsh, right off the get-go, because you want to see how the person will react.
Kind of as that first test of how are you going to take that boundary?
Exactly. Are they going to respect it or not?
Yeah.
Because you learn a lot in that moment when you tell somebody no. That's up to you how you want to do that. I wouldn't recommend that. It's fake,
Sure.
And we're honest people. But the main thing is that be respectful at all times, because if somebody gives in because you're screaming at them or yelling at them or calling them names or saying you think you're so smart or you think you're so pretty and all that stuff, they hear it all the time, and that's an attack. I mean, and it is aggressive. And if you really want to change things, start modeling kindness and start telling your friends to model kindness.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right.
Sorry, I went off on a big tangent.
It's okay.
there.
I opened that door. I know how I feel about this stuff. I opened that door.
Okay, thanks.
It's all right. I'm giving you permission for everything today.
Thanks.
You're free. So setting boundaries and naming when it's not safe to have a conversation. All of these are ways to reclaim your voice, and it does take time to do that. So it doesn't have to be a grand gesture. You don't have to walk into a room and say, from now on, I am going to tell you when I am uncomfortable. Just baby steps.
Yeah.
Just practice a little bit. Small steps matter. Even setting one boundary is progress for those of us who have a hard time doing that, who have been told that our own boundaries are selfish or they don't build relationships. Every boundary you can set that maintains your own peace is a victory.
And if people are trying to strategize with you about your boundary, just cut it off.
We need little red flags.
I know, there's like a million different variables, but sometimes like you'll set a boundary and then you'll let somebody cross that boundary later because you feel more comfortable, and they'll say, well, before you used to say no and all that. Yeah, okay, because it was different then, and now I have revised it. It's like I'm always saying about leadership, there's a lot of leaders that'll say, well, I don't change my mind because that looks weak, and that's absolutely not true. Good leaders are ones that take in more input and revise their strategies as they go along.
Yes.
And when those strategies no longer need to be so confining, then they can loosen it up. But a lot of people have strict boundaries because people take advantage of them.
That's true.
They do their best to cross them and abuse those.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Building trust takes time, and honoring boundaries is one of the greatest first things you can do to build trust. So some of the things you can say as you're trying to introduce more boundaries in your communication is, I want to say this differently than I used to. I want to be able to be honest with you.
Yeah,
about
model
how I feel.
that.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. And my voice matters even if I use it carefully. We should not be required to scream, yell, and rant to be heard. So just because you're saying it politely and respectfully doesn't mean it's weak.
Exactly.
So your voice matters. Get your voice out there however you are comfortable.
I've told people, it's like, do you need me to yell in order to get the point across to you when I ask you to do something? Because I can do it. I don't want to.
Yeah.
And they've thought about it. They'd be like, oh, wow, I better listen. You can still provide that information respectfully to try to change the environment. But like I said before, credibility is a big deal. So just be consistent and don't be transactional. It's like, okay, I put my opinion in the ring. They laughed at it. They didn't listen this time. Maybe next time they will.
Yeah.
And that's the main thing is develop those coping skills above and beyond what you see in your peer group.
Yes, absolutely. So, some things to reflect on this week. We want you to identify one situation where you stay silent in a room. Ask about, is this a safety issue? Think about that, and ask what it communicates. Ask what your silence communicates in the relationship. Are you not getting your own needs met? Are you not able to contribute in a way that you might be able to make a productive difference in the exchange in the relationship? What's the impact of your silence? Just reflect on that this week.
Excellent. When you're doing this, strategize. Like we said, you don't need to intervene. Just make sure you're asking yourself, what are you communicating about your worth? And when you have to stand up, stand up. A lot of times in those situations, you have to remember that there's behavioral performances going on, especially in the workplace. So a lot of times you're better off to just humbly wait until the boss is alone and then take a moment and say, sir, I didn't want to interrupt anything earlier, but I had this idea. I'm not sure what you think about it, but just throwing it out there. That way you're not asserting, you're doing that. You're doing everything you can to make them not feel intimidated, which you shouldn't have to do, which I get it, I agree. But once again, what are you going to do to make yourself heard?
Absolutely. And then practice writing one boundary phrase for that exact situation. Or if you're feeling super brave, try the boundary in person.
Just remember, don't give up.
Yeah.
One sentence isn't going to change the environment that you're in. It's not going to change the relationship you're in. Just be consistent and basically focus on your own coping skills, not needing compliance when you throw out that opinion or you throw out that idea, and just knowing you did the best that you can. And it's really important to also realize that women should not have to sacrifice their safety to have a voice. The bottom line is, if someone came up to a guy, and if it was a lady and they were hitting on a man and he's like, I'm sorry, I'm not interested, they don't deal with the same thing that a woman frequently does. And men, you need to understand this too. For you being a good person, or you want to be a good person, and you still don't get the reciprocity, you don't get the conversation, the person just misses you. For every one person that's nice, a woman has either experienced a good 10 guys that weren't, or 100 stories where other women were assaulted, physically assaulted, verbally assaulted, normal, I'm just trying to live my own life comfortably situations.
It's true. So this, as we mentioned before, this is a dovetail. We did a male communication podcast. This is our women's communication podcast. We also will delve much deeper into these topics in books about male and female communication. Our hope is that you'll want to read both so that you can not only understand what impacts your own communication style, but how that of the opposite gender might also impact them and help to build better communication across the genders. So we're very thankful for your time and attention today. We know these are important topics. If you have thoughts, questions, feedback, as always, you can email us, talk@honestvoice.net. You can put comments in the comment section. Reach out. We'd love to hear from you. So we hope you have a great week. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you next time.
Take care.